You hear it, don't you? The second hand on the watch you stole from her? It still hasn't stopped, Mr. Kane.
The cracked little watch lay between them on the damp concrete floor, ticking softly in the echoing dark of an old warehouse across the river in New Jersey. Outside, rain hammered the rusted metal roof, each drop like a slow, deliberate count toward something neither of them could undo. The younger man's black shirt was soaked through. His hair dripped. His hands were clenched so tight his knuckles had gone white, but his voice was almost calm. "For 5 years," he said, "I've been living like a ghost, just so I could stand in front of you tonight." If someone had walked past that warehouse at that exact moment, they would have heard only rain and distant highway traffic. They would never have guessed that inside, a man was finally face to face with the person who had wrecked his life, standing on the edge of a choice that could turn him into a monster or something else. To understand how he got here, you'd have to go back to another rainy night, a long time ago. It had been raining that night, too. Cold fall rain, the kind that turns New York streets into slick, shining black glass. Out in Queens, in a small basement apartment that always smelled a little bit like damp plaster, Ethan Miller sat hunched over a wobbly little table beneath a buzzing fluorescent light. In his hands, he held a small women's watch. The glass face was spider-webbed with a thin crack. The leather band was worn and peeling. The second hand twitched, then jerked forward, struggling to keep time. Across from him, Lily Hart rested her chin on her hands and watched him with that soft, amused look she got whenever he focused on something, like it was the most important thing in the world. "Do you know why I like the sound of rain in this city?" she asked quietly. Ethan smirked without looking up. "Because it's loud enough you don't have to hear your stomach growl." She kicked his chair lightly with her socked foot. "No," she said, "because when it rains, the sad stuff in my head feels a little quieter." The fluorescent light washed her face pale, but her eyes were alive. If not for that look in her eyes, Ethan was pretty sure he would still be in some crappy small town, drunk like his old man, yelling at whoever was closest. Instead, he was here, in a basement in Queens, trying to fix a cracked watch with hands that had learned to build and repair instead of break. He finished tightening a tiny screw and slid the watch back onto her wrist. "There," he said. "Princess thrown out of the mansion watch, restored." It was the one thing Lily had taken with her when she left her parents' huge house in the suburbs. The night she told them she was dropping out of law school and moving in with a guy who worked on cars for a living, her father had put her bags on the porch and told her she was no longer their daughter. She'd sold the jewelry, the designer bags, the clothes. The watch stayed. Lily turned her wrist, the cracked glass catching the light like a thin white scar. "Ethan," her voice was half joking, half not. "If we ever get our own place, like a real place, not a basement with moldy corners, are you still gonna fix my watch when it breaks?" "Lily," he said, as if it were the simplest thing in the world, "you let me worry about the apartment. And as for the watch, if there's even one piece left, I'll fix it." He meant both promises, completely. He had no idea how hard the world was about to test them. By day, Ethan worked at Kane Auto, a fancy European car service center in Manhattan. Porsches, Mercedes, Land Rovers, cars worth more than everything he'd ever owned, stacked together. The de facto king of the place was Richard Kane, Mr. Kane to everyone on the floor. Late 30s, slim, expensive suits that never wrinkled, a Swiss watch that gleamed under the bay lights. His cologne always arrived half a second before he did. Sharp, expensive, and just a little too much. "Ethan," his voice cut through the noise of air guns and engines. "That G-Wagon has to be out of here by 8 a.m. Can you stay late and finish it?" Ethan wiped his hands on a rag and nodded. "Yes, sir. I can stay." Mr. Kane studied him a moment, smirking. Mike tells me you're getting married. Ethan felt his ears heat. We're talking about later this year. Just need to save a little more. Kane clapped a hand on his shoulder like they were old friends. Good. A man should build something before he starts a family. You keep working this hard. I'll make sure it pays off. In the corner, the floor manager, Mike Torres, watched with that little half-smile Ethan could never quite read. Something between amusement and contempt. For Ethan, life was brutally simple. He fixed engines. He stayed late. He put every extra dollar in a savings jar labeled "Wedding" in Lily's messy handwriting. Lily worked the evening shift at a small cafe in Brooklyn. Warm lights, lopsided art, indie music humming in the background. At closing time, she'd text him photos, a crooked lamp she loved, the chalkboard menu she relettered, the small potted plant in the corner. Future living room goals, she'd write. He'd send back pictures of his hands, stained with grease but forming crooked heart shapes. Later. Just a little later. That's what they told themselves. One afternoon, Kane leaned against a workbench and asked, casual as anything, "What's your girl's name again?" "Lily," Ethan said. "Where's she work?" "A coffee place in Brooklyn. It's called Rainy Day Cafe, off Atlantic." Kane's eyes paused for half a second. Then he smiled. "Cute name. Think I've seen it." That night, Ethan's phone buzzed while he was elbow-deep in an engine. Lily. "New regular tonight. Big tipper. Smells like that cologne you hate from work. Your boss, maybe?" He laughed, sending back. "If he hits on you, tell him your fiancée can slash tires in under 30 seconds. Lily replied with a laughing emoji. Then, "I swear, that smell makes me think of my parents' house. Don't know why, makes my skin crawl." Her old life and his current boss sharing the same scent. That should have felt like a warning. It didn't. It was just a weird coincidence they laughed about. Later, he went to pick her up. Rain blurred Brooklyn into streaks of neon. From across the street, he could see Lily bowing to a customer through the cafe window. The man's face was obscured, but the shine of a watch and the silhouette of a tailored jacket were clear enough. When she came out, Ethan pulled her close under his hoodie. "You smell like coffee," he said, faking a sniff. "Not cologne. Good. I won't have to fight anybody tonight." "If you ever started wearing that cologne," she said, tipping water off the brim of her cap, "I'd break up with you on the spot." They laughed. It was the kind of joke you make when you're sure you have time. They didn't. On the night of the accident, the rain felt heavier than usual. New York rain that soaked you straight through, no matter what you wore. In the Manhattan shop, Ethan checked the time. 10:03 p.m. He texted Lily. "Finishing up a rush job. 15 minutes and I'm out. Wait for me, okay?" The message sat at delivered, not read. At that moment, Lily's phone was already lighting up with someone else's name. Richard Kane. "Hey, Lily." His voice sounded smooth and concerned. "I'm out by the bridge, not far from your place. Can we talk for a few minutes? It's about your family." She went still. "My family?" "I had a meeting with an attorney who knows your father," he said. "I found out some things. About why they cut you off so brutally. About what they're planning now. I thought you'd want to know." The question had been eating at her since the day she walked out of that house. Why had her father, who she'd spent 23 years trying to please, thrown her away so easily? She chewed her lip, staring at the rain-fogged glass of the cafe door. "I'm working," she said weakly. "And my fiancé." 5 minutes. Kane's voice dropped. "That's all?" "Then you can walk home. I'll meet you close by, on the Brooklyn Bridge. There's a turnout where I can pull over." Silence. Rain tapped against the window. "Okay," she whispered. She told her manager a friend had an emergency. She grabbed her bag and ran out into the rain. On the way, she thumbed a hurried text. "Friend needs me. Don't come to pick me up tonight. I'll explain later. Love you." Back at the garage, Ethan was under the raised body of a car when his phone buzzed in his back pocket. He didn't feel it. Lily ran, shoes splashing through puddles. A black SUV idled by the curb near the bridge entrance, hazard lights blinking orange. The passenger door opened. The same cologne hit her as she climbed in, rain and perfume mixing in the closed cabin. By the time Ethan wiped his hands and checked his phone, the text was 20 minutes old. The call came to the shop's landline. Mike picked up, tossing a rag over his shoulder. "Kane Auto." A voice crackled through, giving a name, a location, a word that made Mike's face drain of color. Accident. Ethan stepped away from the car, something twisting in his gut. Mike? What's going on? Mike hung up slowly, looking at him like he wished he didn't have to say anything. "That was an ER," he said. "Somewhere near the Brooklyn Bridge. They found a card from our shop in a woman's purse. Names: Lily Hart. They're asking if we're her emergency contact." The rest was noise. Sirens in his head, not in the street. White hallways, too bright. Nurses moving too fast. Rain on his clothes, on the floor, on the glass doors. A stainless steel tray with her watch on it. A white sheet pulled up too high. A doctor talking, voice slow, words slower. There was severe head trauma. She lost a lot of blood before someone called it in. We tried everything we could. Ethan understood none of it until 3 specific words finally cut through. She didn't make it. The doctor asked if there was someone else they could call. He asked if Ethan wanted to sit down. Sign here. Initial there. "We're so sorry." Ethan heard none of it. He took the watch from the tray. It was sticky, washed, but not fully clean. The crack in the glass was worse now. The second hand skipped, barely keeping up. Tick, tick, tick. Everything else had stopped. Only that stubborn little sound remained. 3 days after they buried her, Ethan went back to work. He showed up without the black tie. The bruises on his heart didn't show, so nobody asked. Mr. Kane came out of his glass-walled office and approached him with a carefully measured mix of sympathy and distance. "Ethan," he said, "I heard about what happened. I'm sorry. Really. Take as much time as you need." "I'd rather work," Ethan said. "Work is easier." Kane nodded, all understanding. "Okay, but if you need anything, money, a reference, time off, you come to me. I take care of my people." Ethan looked at him, at the perfectly straight tie, at the spotless shoes, at the expression that stopped just short of real emotion. He said, "Thank you, sir," and went back to the cars. Later, in the break room, he heard Mike talking to another tech. "Yeah, cops say it was a black SUV," Mike was saying. "Hit her hard, driver ran. They're looking, but you know how that goes." "What kind of SUV?" the tech asked. "High-end, fancy plates," Mike shrugged. "Could be anything." Ethan's grip on his plastic coffee cup tightened. At home, late at night, he read every article he could find about the accident. Hit and run on Brooklyn Bridge kills young woman. Police searching for driver. No answers. No closure. Then, a few days later, he heard something that lit a fuse. He was walking past Kane's office when he heard Mike's voice through the half-open door. "Got the car into the private bay, just like you wanted," Mike murmured. "Front end's a mess. If we're gonna swap everything before the insurance adjuster wanders in, I need your okay." Kane's reply was low and annoyed. "I told you, I've already talked to the adjuster. They owe me. We handle repairs. They handle the paperwork. This doesn't come back on the company. It's just a drunk driver and a bad night. End of story." Ethan froze in the hallway. Drunk driver? Bad night. End of story. There was a private bay behind the main shop. Ethan had been in there once or twice. Only VIP cars went in there. Only Kane and Mike signed off on the jobs. Later, when the place emptied out, Ethan walked the perimeter of the shop in the rain until he found the tire tracks leading to the back entrance. He slipped inside. Under the harsh lights, a black SUV sat on the lift, front end caved in, bumper and hood removed. The impact had been hard enough to shatter glass, crumple steel, make the frame groan. On one of the carts, a plastic shard lay by itself, half cleaned. He picked it up. The logo on it matched the make and model he'd seen in the news. His heart started to pound. He knew this car. He'd sat in the driver's seat. He'd vacuumed the floor mats. It was Richard Kane's. There was a room in the back of the shop with a metal door and a sign that said, "Authorized personnel only." That was where Kane kept the good stuff. VIP files, insurance paperwork, all the things people with money wanted buried. Ethan started to pay attention. Who went in? When? Which keyring Mike used? What nights Kane stayed out late? What nights the office stayed empty? Back in his apartment, he sat at the table where he'd once fixed Lily's watch, now spread with paper instead. Notes, dates, license plates, the names of insurance reps on business cards. Hair grew out around his ears. His eyes got a little darker underneath. One rainy night, he stayed late on purpose. Mike and Kane headed out together. Some client dinner, some bar, some private room with expensive booze and cheaper morals. The techs left in ones and twos. The cleaning crew mopped up and clocked out. Ethan waited until the security guard was bored enough to trust him. "You heading out soon?" the guard asked. "Gotta finish one last car," Ethan said. "If you want to lock up, I can close the bay when I'm done." The guard hesitated, then shrugged. "You're here every night anyway. Just make sure the alarm's on when you leave." A few minutes later, Ethan stood in front of the authorized personnel-only door, Mike's key ring in his hand. The key turned with a soft click. Inside, it smelled like paper, leather, and Kane's cologne. Filing cabinets lined the walls. A desk with a sleek computer sat in the middle. He went straight for the cabinets. Kane, Richard. He pulled the drawer. Inside, neat folders. Tax returns, property documents, vehicle files. He found the one for the black SUV. He spread it open on the desk. Insurance policy. Vehicle identification number. A claim filed on the exact date Lily died. Repair orders. Front-end collision. Replace windshield. Replace hood. Bumper. Lights. In the margin of one repair order, there was a messy pen note in Mike's handwriting. Fast track before inspection. No mention of owner driving. Keep company name out of report. Ethan's vision tunneled. They knew. They knew, and they had buried it under forms, signatures, and lies. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. He snapped the folder shut and killed the lights just as the office door handle rattled. He ducked behind the door. The smell of cologne hit first. Then Kane walked in, muttering, "Forgot my watch." He crossed to the desk, opened a drawer, grabbed a small box, and left again, never bothering to flip on the lights. The door closed. His footsteps faded. In the dark, Ethan sank down onto his knees, shaking. His chest hurt. His eyes stung. The folder was still clutched in his hands. He had what he needed. He also had nowhere left to pretend he didn't know. He didn't march to the police. He didn't storm into Kane's office. Not yet. He went home and made copies. He tucked one set inside the hollow of a broken radiator in his hallway, one set under a warped floorboard in the apartment. The third set he folded into tiny squares and slid behind the metal backing of Lily's watch, snapping it closed again like a vault. Every night, he'd open the watch, check that the papers were still there, and listen to the ticking. He stopped cracking jokes at work. He stopped talking much at all. A few months later, he quit. "My mom's sick," he told Kane. "Back home. I need to be there." Kane did his best sympathetic face. "Family comes first," he said. "I'm sorry to lose you. You're good. Really good. You ever need anything, a job, a recommendation, you call me." "I will," Ethan said. He walked away without looking back. He didn't go back home. He moved across the river to New Jersey, to a place with a view of the city that felt like looking at a crime scene from far away. He changed his hair. He changed the way he dressed. He started going by his middle name instead of Ethan. James Miller, he wrote on the next job application. Eventually, a logistics company hired him as a driver. He kept his head down. He drove on time. He didn't talk much. People liked that. He learned which companies Kane's business interacted with, which offices overlapped, which executives played golf with which other executives. After a while, someone said, "We've got a spot open. One of our partners is looking for a full-time driver. Interested?" James shrugged. "Sure," he said. On the first day of his new assignment, the boss took one look at him and smirked. "Richard Kane," the man said, sticking out a hand. "You must be the new guy." "James," he said, taking it. "James Miller." Kane squinted. "Have we met?" "No, sir," James said smoothly. "Just another guy who likes to drive." Kane nodded, apparently satisfied. "I like quiet drivers," he said. "You stay quiet, you'll do well." James just smiled in the rearview mirror and merged into traffic. He became part of the scenery of Kane's life. The car door that was always open, the engine that was always running, the man who knew when to speak, and, more importantly, when not to. He drove Kane to late-night meetings in Midtown, to brownstones in Brooklyn, to country clubs upstate. He learned how his boss drank when he was stressed, who he called when he needed favors, which names made him nervous. He waited. One rainy night, driving back from a failed deal, Kane was more drunk than usual. The city smeared past the windows, lights bleeding into each other. "You married, James?" Kane asked suddenly from the back seat. "Was engaged," James said. "Didn't work out." "Huh." Kane swirled the liquor left in his glass. "Love's overrated. You know what matters? Position. Power." He hiccuped a little laugh. "I almost married into that once. Big family, old money. Their daughter thought she was rebelling, picking a guy like me. They wanted a merger. I wanted the access. It would have worked if she hadn't run off with some nobody from a garage." James kept his eyes on the road. "Some nobody?" he repeated calmly. "Yeah, a mechanic, I think," Kane slurred. "Kid had nothing. She threw away everything for him. Daddy cut her off. House, money, family name, gone. And then," he gave a humorless little huff, "then the universe took care of the mess. Car accident. Bridge. Bad weather. These things happen." James's stomach turned. "What happened to the guy?" he asked. "Who knows?" Kane said. "Guys like that, they break. They drink themselves to death, or crawl back to wherever they came from. The world moves on. A crash is just a crash. Tragic, sure. But that's life, right?" Rain pounded the windshield, loud all of a sudden. In the driver's seat, James's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. He didn't say anything more that night. He didn't need to. He knew exactly how this story ended. He just hadn't decided yet what to do with it. And so we arrive back at tonight. The warehouse in New Jersey, the rain, the watch. Inside, the overhead fluorescent lights hummed. Ratty wooden crates sat in uneven stacks against the walls. Water dripped from a hole in the roof into a metal bucket. Plink, plink, plink. Kane ended a call with someone high up and slipped the phone into his coat pocket. "Yes, sir. Everything's handled," he had said. "The lawsuit, the accident, all of it. The guy they pinned it on was drunk and broke. He's not talking. It's over. He turned around and saw James still standing there, by the crates. What are you doing? Kane asked, irritated. Check the back door, would you? Security here's a joke. James didn't move. Mr. Kane, he said quietly, you ever think about how some accidents don't stay buried? Kane frowned. What? James stepped forward and placed the watch on the crate between them. Kane's eyes flicked down. The leather strap was still worn. The glass was still cracked. He looked at it for a few seconds too long. Where'd you get that? He asked slowly. James's voice was steady. From the ER tray next to the woman you hit on the Brooklyn Bridge 5 years ago. The clock on the wall ticked. The rain beat down harder. Kane let out a short, disbelieving laugh. You're drunk, James. Or crazy. He moved to push past him. James didn't budge. You filed an insurance claim 3 days after the accident, James went on. You had the entire front end of your SUV replaced. The adjuster signed off without asking questions because your company funnels him business. You had the shop manager write, driver unknown, possible DUI, do not mention company owner. Kane's smile cracked. Where are you getting this? James took a folded packet of papers from his coat and let them drop onto the crate. They fanned out, photocopies of claims, repair records, notes in familiar handwriting. From the back room at Kane Auto, he said. From the bay where your car sat, with blood still drying in the seams, while they ripped the evidence off the front. Kane stared at the papers, then at James. You've been planning this, he said, throat tight. For how long? Since the night I picked her watch up off that metal tray, James said. Since I saw your car on the lift. Since I realized the man who wrote me a sympathy card was the same one who left her bleeding on asphalt and drove home to fix the damage. Kane swallowed. This is blackmail. His voice came out rough. You want money? Fine. Name your price. James actually laughed at that. It wasn't a nice sound. You really think this is about money? He asked. What else would it be about? Kane snapped. You think you're gonna get justice? Please. The system doesn't care. Rich guys fall and land on other rich guys. You go to the cops with this, and they'll chew you up before they even touch me. James stepped closer. They were almost the same height. Tonight, Kane seemed smaller. 5 years ago, James said softly, you called Lily. Told her you had information about her family. You got her into your car. And you chose to drive, drunk, in a storm, across a bridge where the railing still has dents from other wrecks. You hit her. You ran. You hid. He nudged the papers closer with 2 fingers. This, he said, is what's left of that choice. Kane sat down on a crate, suddenly looking older. What do you want? He whispered. If not money, what? You want my life? You gonna shoot me? Push me off a bridge? What? James thought about it. More honestly, he remembered the hundreds of nights he'd already thought about it. I wanted to kill you, he said. I pictured a lot of things. A car accident of your own. You waking up in a twisted mess of metal and glass, hearing nothing but your own breathing and the rain. He glanced at the watch. But every time I saw this, I heard her voice. Lily wouldn't have wanted that. She hated what my father became when he was angry and drunk. She got me out of that life. If I kill you, I become more like him than her. He pulled his phone from his pocket and tapped the screen. On it were folders labeled with cloud icons, emails drafted to multiple recipients. Right now, he said, all of this is backed up in places you can't reach. If I die, if my phone disappears, if I don't log in for a certain number of days, these files send themselves to reporters, to the DA, to people who really, really hate you. Kane's eyes widened. You're bluffing? James shrugged. Maybe, he said. Are you willing to bet your freedom on that? They stared at each other while the warehouse filled with the sound of rain and the relentless, soft ticking of the little watch. "You're insane," Kane muttered. "Probably," James said. "But I'm not the one who called a girl out in a storm and left her dead on a bridge." His voice softened, but the steel underneath remained. "You're going to walk into a police station," he said. "You're going to say, 'I was the driver involved in that hit and run 5 years ago.' You're going to hand them names, dates, every deal you made to keep my fiancée's face off the news and your name out of the report." "And if I don't?" Kane croaked. "Then I let go," James said simply. "The story stops belonging to you. Or to me. It belongs to whoever picks it up. And believe me, they won't be as kind as I'm being right now." "Kind," Kane echoed, incredulous. "I'm giving you a choice," James said. "That's more than you gave her." Silence, except for the rain and the bucket going plink, plink, plink. Finally, Kane's shoulders sagged. "How long?" he asked. "Before you do whatever you're going to do?" 3 days, James said. "After that, it's out of my hands." Kane nodded slowly, as if the movement hurt. James picked up the watch, stepped forward, and pressed it into Kane's palm. "Keep it," he said. "Every tick is a second you took from her. Don't pretend you don't know what that feels like." Then he turned and walked away. Behind him, in the empty warehouse, a grown man sat alone on a crate in the flickering white light, clutching a dead girl's watch like a lifeline. 3 days later, the news broke. Corporate VP turns himself in for 5-year-old hit and run on Brooklyn Bridge. There were pictures. Kane in a suit, hands cuffed in front of him, jaw clenched. There were interviews with police, with attorneys, with sources close to the investigation. There were words like cover-up, insurance fraud, obstruction. There was Lily Hart's name in black and white, not as a statistic, but as a person. In a small apartment in New Jersey, James sat at his kitchen table and watched it all. The TV light flickered across his face. His phone buzzed again and again, messages from unknown numbers and old colleagues. He ignored them. On the table in front of him lay the watch. He'd taken it back. Kane hadn't deserved to keep it. This time he'd replaced the glass properly. The crack was still there, faintly visible at an angle, but sealed. A scar. Not an open wound. He opened the back. The papers were gone. They didn't need to live in there anymore. The proof was in the world now. He closed it with a soft click and listened. Tick, tick, tick. "Hey, Lil," he said quietly. "Took me a while. I'm sorry." He didn't feel triumphant. He didn't feel healed. He felt less hollow. A little less like he was stuck on that bridge. He got up, walked to the window, and looked at the skyline across the river. The rain had stopped. The city glowed under low clouds. He pulled out his phone and canceled the auto-send triggers one by one. If they tried to bury things again, he still had backups. He wasn't stupid. But for now, he'd given Kane what he'd demanded from him 5 years ago. A choice. He slipped the watch onto his own wrist for the first time. The weight was unfamiliar. Then again, so was the feeling in his chest. Not peace, exactly. Something that could one day become peace, if he let it. He opened his front door and stepped out into the hall. For the first time in years, his next move wasn't dictated by revenge. He could go back to being a mechanic somewhere. He could disappear into some small town and fix trucks all day. He could stay and watch the trial from the back row. He didn't know yet. But as he walked down the stairs and out into the cool air, he realized something simple and strange. The anger was still there, but it wasn't driving anymore. He was. On the street, puddles reflected the sky. Car tires hissed past. Somewhere, a siren wailed, then faded. On his wrist, The little second hand kept moving forward. If you'd been there to see him walking under the gray sky, hands in his pockets, you might not have known what he'd just done. He looked like any other guy leaving his building. But inside, a 5-year storm was finally starting to break, and somewhere on a file in some computer, next to the words "victim," a name appeared. Lily Hart. Not just an accident. Not no one important. Just a girl who loved the sound of rain because, in it, the sad thoughts got a little quieter. Maybe, he thought, hearing the soft ticking on his wrist, that could be true for him now, too.